Okay, we're good to go.
Okay, Roger, thanks. We thank everybody for joining our UIA meeting today. I am traveling and having a hard time with my phone and getting the agenda up right now, so still trying to find it actually.
I can share.
But yeah, do you want to just share it? That'd help me a bunch, Roger. I know approval of the April minutes has got to be the first thing on the agenda. So is any,
We got some welcome and introductions here. How about that? Just for note, in the room here, we don't have any board members, but we do have staff, and then we have one guest, Brad Patterson, as bond counsel. Yep.
And John Flores is new.
Oh, John Flores is a new board member.
John is with West Valley, correct?
Yep.
Yes, that's good.
Welcome, John. Welcome everybody else.
Thank you.
Like I said, I'm having a hard time on my phone here, so I'm going to do my best this morning. But looks like the second thing on there is just approval of the June minutes. Has anyone had a chance? Everyone had a chance to review those, and would anyone like to make a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of June 24th.
Is there a second? Thank you, Brenda.
I'll second that. Jason Sant.
Thanks, Jason. Any further discussion on any of the minutes? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The next item is a consideration of approval of resolution 2405 for some bond money. I'll turn the time over to you, Roger. Go ahead.
All right. Well, this is what we do here to finance the growth of the network. It's a good thing when we have needs for capital because it means people want our service. And so the purpose of this one, in some cases, we come in with a citywide project or some specific project where we need the funds. And then sometimes we have kind of a multi-purpose one just to keep up with our installations and incremental growth. And that's what this one is. This one is a smaller amount than we've done previously at UIA. Part of our capital needs we can fund from cash, but not enough to keep up with the demand. Just from a demand perspective, I mean, we were just looking, our numbers from last month, and we'll go through our subscriber report later, but across all of our systems we own and our partnerships, we were 999 net customer growth in the month, which is phenomenal, but it does cost money to connect additional connections in our networks. And so that's the primary use. And then we keep building houses in our cities. And so we keep having new developments, we keep expanding to those, we keep getting those customers. That's all good for us financially, especially in the long term, as we establish new recurring revenues. And we are already in a position to cover the revenue from this bond. But obviously we expect these funds to continue to grow our revenues above and beyond that. So we actually see this as a pretty conservative amount and conservative use of the funds to grow our revenues for the next year or so. So that's the purpose of the bonds. We usually like to hear from bond counsel a little bit. This is kind of the formal, representation of these.
Absolutely. Thank you, Roger. My name is Brad Patterson. I'm with the law firm at Gilmore and Bell. We are a bond counsel to the Utah Infrastructure Agency. Pleased to be before the board this morning to talk to you about the resolution or the proposed resolution that is before the board at this point in time. As Roger mentioned, this is another series of telecommunications revenue bonds. As Roger mentioned, sometimes there's some project-specific revenue bonds, and then there's what is known as the UIA general revenue bonds. These are going to be known as the UIA general revenue bonds to finance additional improvements throughout the system. What we have here is a resolution that authorizes the issuance of the bonds. After your consideration, if you do adopt it, then there will be no further action on behalf of the board that needs to be taken, as this is what is known as a parameters resolution. We set forth the broad parameters as it relates to the issuance of the bonds, and as long as the bonds are issued in those parameters, we designate to certain people the ability to finalize the terms of those bonds. And so we have chosen as our designated officers in this particular transaction, any chair, the three individuals, the chair, the vice chair, chief executive officer, as well as the secretary treasurer. As long as those three people agree to the terms of the bonds, they have the ability to finalize the terms of the bonds as long as they are within certain parameters. The parameters that we've set for these bonds are they can't have a principal amount of any more than $19 million, although I understand there will probably be less than that, but that is the maximum principal amount. The interest rate cannot exceed 6% per annum. They cannot mature more than 25 years, and they can't be sold at a discount less than 97% of the par amount of the bonds. The resolution also authorizes a variety of other documents, including a 7th supplemental indenture. The previous bonds were issued under a general indenture. These bonds are going to be issued on parity with those bonds. So we are entering into a 7th supplemental indenture pursuant to that master indenture. This resolution authorizes that particular document, as well as a bond purchase contract. One final thing to note is that state law requires us to hold a public hearing in advance of the issuance of the bonds. We will set a time. I think the resolution sets a time for that public hearing. That just gives the people the opportunity to come in and voice their opinions on the matter. Their opinions aren't dispositive of what will actually happen, but nonetheless, the state law dictates to us that we actually have to have this hearing. So with that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Brad, this is Laura. I don't have any questions. I'm sorry I joined late. I was having trouble with my connection here at the hotel. So I don't know if it was discussed that we're hopeful. We don't know yet, but we're hopeful that we may be able to approach Standard & Poor's for a rating this go around. Where historically they have basically said to us that we don't, they don't have criteria to rate these type of bonds. They've rated a much smaller transaction out of West Virginia. It wasn't investment grade rated. Excuse me, not out of West Virginia, Vermont. So we've begun discussions with them about, possibly rating UIA. So that's just something else to be aware of.
Thank you for that information, Laura. Does any of the board members have any questions for Roger, Laura, or Brad?
This is Brendan Bybee. I just have a question for Roger. And I think you started to speak about this, Roger, but there's always a little bit of apprehension with new debt, right? So could you just share what your projected revenue increase due to the growth that this new capital will finance? Will, like in the past, do you project that the new revenue that will be generated will more than cover this debt increase?
I can answer that, Roger, with numbers if you like.
Jason would probably be better with the numbers on it.
Yeah, if you look at we had budgeted for debt to be issued, and if you look at what we have budgeted, we have about $6 million that I would say would be due of increased revenue that would be due to this growth. There's still a lot of revenue opportunities out there is what we're seeing, both inside our existing city and adjacent to lines. We have very close to other places, to some businesses in other cities too. If you look at the projected bond payment on this, you're looking at, I'm going to say somewhere between 1.1 and 1.5 million. Laura, I'm probably pretty close on that. So
it'll be in that neighborhood.
We will be making more money, which is going to be very important as we have 3 years of capitalized interest on most of our older bonds. we do have a much larger debt payment coming up in fiscal year 2025. And this will help take care of that payment and also increase our dividends to the cities. Our debt repayments to the city. Sorry, I shouldn't say dividends.
And is there a year of capitalized interest? I don't have the numbers pulled up. My recollection is that we only put a year of CapI into this one because, you know, CapI is expensive. We utilize it when we need it, but we're to a point where you don't need as much capitalized interest because you have, you know, so many revenues coming in.
And we're also spending this money on connections within a year. So there's really no reason to put capitalized interest out 3 years. We take this money in and get it into revenue very quickly.
And then
That's what I
one
wanted
of
to
the
hear.
questions,
Thank you.
if I were in your shoes to ask, would be like, so is this the last one? And it kind of depends where we are at the end of this period of spend. I would say probably not, although we've been able to downsize how much debt we're issuing, you know, as we're able to increase our cash coming off the system. At the same time, we're trying to balance that with debt repayments. So I would say it's likely that we'll continue to do debt financing for growth in the future, but probably less so as we continue to increase our revenues. And again, if we're issuing debt a little bit on this side so that we can continue to be aggressive with our debt repayment, but not too much on either side, that's a good balance to be in, where we get the benefit of growing our revenues and helping the cities with the old debt. And so I would say we probably do in the future still do types of issuances, but we probably continue to make them small over time. But we still have those opportunities for big projects coming in. I mean, you know, if we have another city come in, the expectation they would need to come to the table with their own backstop for that debt issuance. You know, or if there's other specific projects, we've had potentials of, you know, if it's a really big UIA partnership or some really big business opportunity, if it's big enough and can't be supported by these general purpose bonds, that it could have its own debt issuance. There's been some question about going after BEAD funds because that requires some matching funds. So it is possible, like we had a really big project that was heavily subsidized by the money that the states received for the BEAD program. You know, that could be another instance where we might need to issue some debt to take advantage of those funds, just the matching portion. So anyways, there's still those types of things out there, but in general, we are continuing to do better and better financially, and the need for issuing debt, I would say, just for our own purposes, covering our cities that we're already in, is going to decrease over time.
Jason or Roger, I think my only question is, what do you guys feel is the drop dead date for actually receiving these funds? I know there's a lot of conversation about potentially some rate drop later on this year. Is that something you don't feel like we can wait around for? We need to move quicker. What's your thoughts there?
Our thoughts are we're looking at the beginning to middle of October, and we probably need to move about that time would be best for us.
Okay. Well, okay, if there are no other board members with questions, hopefully you do. If not, then we would entertain a motion on this resolution.
I will make a motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of the bonds, and setting a public hearing date of, when is that public hearing date?
We scheduled it for September 9th.
September 9th.
This is Zach Loxton from Layton. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Brenda and Zach. Is there any further discussion on the motion on the table? Hearing none, Krista, if you would do a roll call for me.
Zach Foxon,
Yes.
Brenda Moore,
Yes.
John Flores,
Yes.
Bryn Bybee,
Yes.
Jason Sant,
Yes.
and Derek Euler.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad and Laura, for your help with UIA on that, and great work on that, everybody. So next on the agenda is a financial update. I'll turn time to you, Jason.
Thank you, Derek. I'll hurry and share my screen. Maybe I'll make this a little bigger. There we go. Hopefully you can all see that now. Here's the financial update for June 30th, 2024 budget compared to actuals. Part of the reason I wanted to show you June 30th is because we do, in July, there are a bunch of invoices that come through that are dated into the prior year. And especially with our capital projects, I wanted to make sure to make that visible to you guys, because this is the one place this becomes really more visible even than our financial report, is how our cash is being spent. So I want to talk a little bit about that. As we look at revenues here, as you can see, residential transport revenue was just 1% over budget, right in line with where we thought it'd be, along with fiber lease revenue. Our business transport revenue was 500,000 less than we thought it would be. These budget changes get very difficult to project sometimes, but I will say we still increased from the prior year by $2.3 million per year. And that's kind of lagged. If you look at the monthly amount, it'll be closer to $3 million per year. What the increase is as it goes into the next year. That's just because some businesses come on halfway through the year and we only get 6 months worth of revenue and stuff like that, and they're still on contract for a while. The miscellaneous revenue is less than budgeted, but that's primarily because there is a state law requiring that we budget for our fund balance to increase each year. And I put most of our fund balance increase to come through miscellaneous revenue, and that didn't happen. If you look at just our regular, normal expected revenues every year, I would say we were about 300,000 lower than budget, but still we were $6 million higher than the prior year. Very, very good year, very good growth year. Any questions on that? And that was a revised budget. Our original budget was much smaller than this. We did a budget revision partway through the year. If you look at our expenses, marketing expense has been showing high in prior months. I'm going through some numbers here, but what we found out is some of the marketing expense that was being booked to UIA actually belongs in Utopia and is related to some of the projects Utopia is doing. So I think marketing expense is going to be much closer to what we had budgeted on the year. Pretty much our expenses are in line with where we had budgeted. That's the biggest thing to see here when we look at our expenses.
So Jason?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Laura. So on the two far right columns, excuse me, the projected 6/30/24 and the budget 6/30/24, is one of those then the budget that you adopted and then the other one is the one that you amended?
No, projected is most months when I do this, it'll show like if we do it in February,
right?
The period ended February 28th, 2024 in the second column over there. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but right here.
Yes, I can.
That's my projected. This takes that out and makes it 12 months.
Okay.
The fact is in June, our projected and our period ended are going to be the same number.
Yes, okay.
The year. That's why it might look confusing in a June one, but in a monthly one, it makes more sense.
Yeah, I don't know that I had seen that before, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is a dumb question, but I got to ask. So thank you for the education.
Every time we look at this, we compare where we were for the prior year and during the same time period. And so that's and then we compare where we project to be at the end of the year versus budget. That's a two thing to look at. Down at the bottom, I'll just point to total capital spending. We had 33.7 million is how much has been spent. We had budgeted to spend 33.4 million. So we are about 300,000 over budget on our capital spend. That number could change a little bit if we have some invoices come in August that have to be booked to the prior year. These numbers are key to watch. 300,000 doesn't concern me greatly, but this is, in my opinion, making sure we keep our capital spend in line with where we have budget is where a lot of our risk is. And so I think this needs to be visible every time we look at it. Any questions about the budget to actual? If not, let me move to the next one, and I can't see the top. Here's our charts for revenues. This shows total revenues, and then it shows Utopia revenues, the blue line, UIA revenues, the red line, and then total of both the green line. What I want to point out is if you look at the last few months, you see a very steep incline, and then you see it flatten out for UIA. The reason you see a very steep incline is I have no idea why, but in May, we had about 50,000 of installation-related charges where people needed installations, and they paid us money to get the installations into their houses. And then we had very little installation revenue in June. But still, if you look at the overall increase in the line, between May and June, we averaged over 50,000 increased revenue per month. They were very, very good months for us. So revenue's still growing and looking very, very good would be my message there. And here, this last one is just showing, here's each of our bond issues and each of these lines coming up here, with the top line being the last bond issue that we did. So if we had to make, this is all the cash we need to make all of our bond payments. And then this is the revenue for UIA up here in the blue. And as you can see, that number continues to just get wider and wider. And now we're about 1.7, 1.8 million more revenue than we need to make our bond payments every month. A lot of that is already, of course, spent on other things, but it is still what enables our growth and what enables us to move into the future. Any questions on the financial update? That's all I have.
My favorite chart.
I'll just make a comment. I mean, I remember when we were super excited when we started doing 10,000 a month over month revenue growth. And so we're just like, man, we're just going to keep this thing going and keep promoting this, keep connecting more customers. But that 50,000 a month over month revenue growth it's a really good place to be in. You know, obviously it enables us to cover new debt, but immediately, right? And then there's a lot of upside on the back end of that as that money keeps coming in for the long term. We can pay these bonds down and grow this network at the same time. So it's we're just gonna keep at it.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Roger. Looks like everybody takes their tax return and goes and gets Utopia fiber.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no other questions for Jason, we'll turn the time over to Roger for a network update.
I'm going to share just from the packet. We've been putting our subscriber charts in the packets. So we haven't talked to subscriber numbers in a while because we've had short agendas. But it's all the way at the bottom of your packet. Coming up, yeah. So you can all reference this. It has the city specific charts in there, and obviously we're liking these numbers. I kind of remind everyone, don't look too much into take rate percentages. We still have issues with how that's reported. We had a meeting the other day with Woodland Hills, and we're going in there and looking at the map of homes, and it's like pretty much every home has the service. But yet we report like 62%, and for whatever reason, the county has a whole bunch of parcels there, and there's properties without homes on them, and those count against us. And the numbers our percentages are actually far better than what we report because of the kind of number of customers divided by the number of parcels from the county. Trying to come up with a better methodology for that, because we actually dig into these areas. We cover a lot more of the city than these percentages are implying. So the focus then would be just to look at subscribers. Subscriber numbers are real. Those are people who have the service and are paying us and benefiting from the service. And obviously subscriber numbers are up. Every one of those subscribers is paying us one way or the other. You know, our third largest city now is Idaho Falls by subscribers. And although we didn't issue any debt, we don't own that network. We are the operator for that, so it's our NOC, it's our engineers, it looks just like Utopia Fiber to go up there, but it is Idaho Falls Fiber. We do have revenue coming in from those, but that's Utopia. So where we issue the debt and own that system, either individually for city or collectively, and the debt was issued under UIA, it falls under that bucket. If it's a operating partnership, then that falls under Utopia, Utopia. So like Bountiful would be in that category. This is UIA meeting, so, but anyways, it all benefits us in it, whether it's on the Utopia or UIA side of the house. But yeah, those subscriber numbers are fantastic. We're just going to keep at it. You know, that total, let's see back there, was 66,000. We're up over 67,000 as of a few days ago. So it's pretty awesome growth. You know, people are always asking us, we think the service is still good. Is it still competitive? We can prove it. Our take rate continues to grow in cities, and even though I don't like the actual calculation of that take rate, it does show us relatively how we're doing compared to other options. Not only, you know, we're not growing just because we're expanding mainline into new cities. We're expanding because we're adding customers within all of our cities that can get the service increasingly, and those customers come from other choices like cable or wireless or whatever it may be. And so the fact that we're continuing to see migration of customers away from everything else, whether that's, like I said, wireless, satellite, cable, they're moving increasingly over to fiber, and obviously we don't expect that to change. But we continue to do things to make sure that it remains competitive. We did introduce a 2.5 gig product. I think we made mention of that at the last board meeting, and we are seeing uptick. In fact, we were struggling with getting devices to keep up with the demand. We had ordered some, and they're kind of a long lead item for those. So that's a good problem to have, is there was more demand for that 2.5 gig product than we expected. We do make more money off of those 2.5 gig customers than we do 1 gig. Our margins are better, and so that's another source of better ARPU, or revenue per customer. That's exciting, and we lowered the price of 10 gig. I think our retail for customers is down to about $150 a month, so that's our premium top tier. It's still a lot. It's more than what most people want to pay, but we're seeing more and more power users or users who get reimbursement from their employer who are taking advantage of that. And so that's also using those 10 gig devices, and it's got a little bit of scarcity there, but we're on it and excited to see kind of the next generation of services, or those top tiers coming in and actually becoming more widespread. Other technologies are not able to offer those, and so I think that's, you know, one of the motivations for why we're seeing, one of the causes for why we're seeing uptick continue in all of our cities across all demographics and everything. We're ahead of the game technology wise and keeping our pricing competitive. We did mention a rate increase for the wholesale transport to our service providers. We are planning to do that, and we don't know what they'll do with that. They may absorb that, and there may not actually be an end user price change. They could pass it along, and they could increase it. We've always kind of been neutral on what they do with the pricing to come up with their retail pricing, but it's very competitive, so we don't expect them to really do anything to push the pricing up more than just the pass through at most. We've not raised our rates in a long time. If we were $4 more expensive across the board, we don't think there'd be any noticeable impact, as we've seen our competitors raise their rates more than that. Again, another reason we've seen increased take rate, but it's the reason for it is both, you know, we want to increase our revenues, but also it's kind of in the rating process of issuing new debt. It helps us get the ratings we need and be able to secure that debt, is to show that we can hit a certain revenue target. So that's where we're at. It's all good news. We love seeing those charts, and we're checking them all the time and making sure we're not losing anywhere or having problems with the service. it's reliable. We've seen a lot of problems with our competitors, and knock on wood, we're not immune to outages. We can get cut and broken just like anyone else, but we respond quickly, get things fixed, and maintain a really high quality of service that keeps and maintains our reputation, which is very helpful to getting more customers, obviously. So it's been a good couple of months, a lot of customers coming on, and we're very happy with how things are going. That's my subscriber network.
Hey, Roger, quick question for me. What have you seen in other Utopia cities? CenturyLink just is finishing their new fiber optic network in Brigham City. Have you seen when competitors come in? Have we seen any rate or subscriber fluctuation or anything to worry about in Brigham City there?
So we're definitely watching that situation very closely, because that's the first city where we have seen CenturyLink come in and build citywide and really market it heavily with door-to-door sales. So I'd say we have seen an impact. It's our growth there has slowed, and we're basically saying, hey, that's one of our top priorities right now, is to kind of see where they're at, do some market research, and see if we can combat that. We have seen them do a little bit of overbuild here and there in other Utopia cities, but only small pockets. Brigham City is the only one we've really seen them go citywide. I think Santa Clara has CenturyLink as well down there. They market it as quantum fiber, and they've got their promotions, and they've done a pretty good job of having a low price and a promotion price. They're notorious for promising price for life for people and then not actually keeping that. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's definitely something that we're aware of and keeping a close eye on. But overall, we're not seeing it's a pretty negligible impact across the network.
Well, I was going to share, we're doing our part. The quantum fiber folks went around for about 10 days without solicitors' licenses, and they knocked on the Brigham City mayor's door, and the police officers met them and made sure they got all the citations and got their solicitor licenses. So we're doing our part.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions?
I'd love for you to not give them those licenses, but obviously we can't expect that of you, and expect cities to treat everybody fairly. We're just going to assume that we need to be competitive and a better choice than that.
They've got to pay their $175 citation before they can get their license. It'll be a few days. Any other questions for Roger from the board? Okay, I think we are at the end. I'm trying to find the agenda again. Is that it, Roger? Sorry, I'm struggling here.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to adjourn.
Well, I think Lauren and I are meeting with S&P tomorrow. We'll grease the skids and see how that
Right.
works for a rating. So, okay, well, I would entertain a motion that we adjourn if there's no other questions or comments from any of the board members.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, we got a motion. I think that was Brenda.
Yes.
I'll second that. That's Zach.
Thank you, Brendan. Zach, all in favor that we adjourn, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Thanks to the Utopia staff and all your consultants for the hard work. We'll see you next month, sounds like. 2 months. Next month. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.